I can't. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Cantor Whitner is on vacation, but we are so fortunate and blessed to have our incredible song leader, Robin Berger, lead us for tonight's service. Go ahead.
We'll start with an oldie but a goodie. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Achim gam yachad, hine ma tov, shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad, hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Everyone with me, here we go. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We turn to page 124 in Mishkan Tefillah, the prayer book, the blue prayer book underneath you. And for those watching at home, they'll be somewhere right above Robin's head. And please give us feedback about this prayer book. Because of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, we're able to do this visual service with this prayer book. So give us feedback about the readings and anything else that you'd like to share. Page 124, and please join me. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak. Let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer, and we continue with our candlelight blessing. Baruch atah Adonai
Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
For those who are able, we rise together for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra kodesh secher letziyat mitzrayim ki vanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim. Kobit l'chaim. Please be seated. We turn to page 127. 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure, but what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, and day of peace. We continue with L'chado Di, our prayer that welcomes the Shabbat bride, on page 138.
Come, my beloved, and let us join together as one family to welcome Shabbat. L'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, dekabela. L'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, dekabela. Shemor v'zachor v'dibur echad, yishmi'anu am yuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litchila. L'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor habracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh v'machshavah techila. Here we go, l'chado Di, l'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chado Di, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, ki va'orech u'mi uri, shir daberi, kavod Adonai.
For those who are able, we rise together and welcome Shabbat HaMalkah.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi kala, lecha dodi. Kala, Erev Shabbat nekavela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, Erev Shabbat nekavela.
We turn to page 145, 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer, on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days, lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. And we continue with our Chetzi Kaddish on page 144.
Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'amad yivrach yurtei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Bagala, Bagala u'vizman kariv ve'imeru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach, Le'olam U'mal Me'almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Ve'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, Ve'yitnaseh, Ve'yitadar, Ve'yitaleh, Ve'yitalal, Shemei Dekudasha Brichu, Le'la Min Kol Birchata, Ve'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma ve'imeru. Amen.
Page 146, we rise together.
Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, Le'olam va'ed. Yalla lai lai lai, 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 yalla lai lai lai.
We turn to page 149 at the top. Praise you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us, even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are love. Let's try together. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, we are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. Embrace us, soothe and counsel, as are the arms, the fingers, the voices, as are the hands, the eyes and smiles. We are loved by an unending love as one community. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. We are love, 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 by unending love and unending love. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all of thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be upon thy heart, shall be upon thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto the children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by thy way, and when thou risest up, and when thou liest down, and when thou liest down, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
The top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our song of freedom and redemption, our Micha Bocha, is on the next page.
Ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Mi chamocha baili Madonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot o sefele, nora tehilot o sefele. Ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Malechut harauf anecha, bokei ayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, zeli zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam.
The top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. A prayer that gives us strength especially at night, our Hashkivenu on page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom V'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. Page 162 at the top.
Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam beinu vein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Page 165 in the middle. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. For those who are able, we rise together for tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tivtachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu ve'emotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot ve'imaot, Umevi Gula Lifnei Vnehem, Leman Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye metim atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiva ruach u'marid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechaye metim berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umkayem emunato li shenei afar, Mikamocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umchaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, Vnemanata lehachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hametim, Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yichalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
The top of page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. We continue on page 179. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of thy name hallow every home and every heart. Praise to you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Omcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Omcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael. B'choletu v'chosha v'shlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
We take a few moments for silent prayer. We're at that moment in our service where we take time to think of those in our community, our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, those who mean so much to us. On this Shabbat, we especially think of Linda Applebaum, Harriet Bagby, Cindy Bailey, Sophia Berry, Katie Bates, Harold Seitlin, Deborah Chargois, Sunita Costa, Melvin Davis, Buster and Eileen Griffith, Elaine Gross, Josie Hatfield, Evelyn Held, Patty Hertzberg, Norma Jill Jacobson, Cody Kessler, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Wayne Lewis, Liz Slive, Chrissy St. Charles, Elena Stern, Brenda Weinstein, Jesse Weisberg, Elisa Roseberg Whitehead, and Chris Collins. For those who are with us tonight, if you are thinking of someone who is in need of healing of body or spirit and you wish to share a name out loud, we invite you to do so as my eyes meet yours. Go ahead. For those names mentioned and for those names that are still in our hearts, our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing, is the middle page of 371.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I know since last week you guys couldn't wait for number 27 for the Omer game. I promise, a few more laughs. I promise we'll get there, but I just want to share some words tonight, especially the week we have had as Americans. Last May, as many of us remember, we were all horrified by the death of George Floyd, and as Americans, we saw the aftermath. There were protests in, I think, every single major city. And believe it or not, even in the suburbs and at Crestline Elementary, there actually was a protest. This country had conversations about police reform within the judicial system, and soon we had questions about race in all avenues of American ethos, from sports to schooling and to streaming television services. In the 19th century, a Frenchman came to this country named Alexis de Tocqueville, and he wrote a book called Democracy in America, which should be on every shelf for every college student. He wrote something incredible about this country, that this country shines when we engage the political scene, when we participate actively, whether to voice our concerns or to volunteer. This is what makes us a great country. And we saw this. Many of us may have disagreed with some of these protests or some of the language, but as an American, I was proud to see that this past summer wasn't a summer of apathy. But we also saw a country that was broken. Riots, getting into people's faces, this mob rule mentality cancel culture. The Talmud teaches us that when a judge makes a decision, it is as though a sword hangs over his head to prevent a rush to judgment. But we saw this past summer numerous cases of rushing to judgment. We also saw virtue signaling and the thing that will utterly destroy this country, illiberalism, against the ideas of openness and freedom of thought, is under attack. A few days ago, Derek Chauvin was found guilty. And as I promised you when I took this position, I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm not going to talk about the merits of this case, whether or not there'll be appeal, or how this verdict resonated with so many Americans. And that's more of the focus. I think my job as a rabbi and as a Jew is to point out as to when a community is truly in anger and in despair. Judaism would compel us to take the road of empathy, to listen. And it's totally okay for us not to agree with all that we hear, but we listen. But my job also as a rabbi and as a Jew for all of us is to point out that we are obligated to get all of the facts, every single nuance, every detail, legitimate data regarding police shootings, hate crime statistics. We're supposed to avoid blanket statements and generalization that's such a core within our religion. I wish it said this in the Talmud, but we can avoid TV personalities, but focus on the data. I learned this past year that we are obligated to hear the cries from our community. We may hold different positions politically or ideologically, but we need to listen. We need to seek to understand, and perhaps we then can make a difference. Apathy isn't going to make changes. This binary approach of labeling, that's not going to do it. Canceling is not going to do it. Unleashing the social media mob isn't justice, and it isn't Jewish. And as Judaism would also tell us, we are obligated to pray for this country, to pray for its healing, its leaders, and the ability to correct our mistakes, to work on our imperfections. I think that many of us hold these beliefs and truly want to engage the process and make a difference. And for that, I'm a proud American. I'm also so grateful for those who called me this past year to talk about the events of the summer and the direction of this country, and challenge me to say, what would Judaism say about our contemporary issues? And I would say to all of us, Judaism's answer, it's never binary. In the Hebrew language, binary actually doesn't exist. It's a cognate, meaning it's a foreign word like binary, but rather rav panim, which means multifaceted perspectives on everything. We don't always agree, but we always have the conversation which matters the most to me. And nevertheless, as Jews, we are commanded to be present in the moment, to assist when others won't, to be active in our community and in our world, to seek justice. Justice, a word that we've been using often these past few weeks and really this past year. And it says in the book of Deuteronomy, tzedek, tzedek terdov, justice, justice in the land you shall pursue, in the land in which you occupy. Whether for those who are fighting for justice in Minnesota or any injustice in any city throughout the world, is something that we must act. And therefore, with this idea of justice, we're going to segue from this country and we're going to head to Paris. And I apologize for the content of what I'm about to say, but tonight I feel that I have an obligation to share this with you based on this injustice. Last week, most of America doesn't know this, and I want to say most of the Jewish community actually doesn't know this. The French Republic carried out finally a 4-year legal battle, which was a travesty, which is an understatement. In 2017, a 27-year-old man named Kobili Traoré he broke into a Paris apartment of his neighbor, and there was Sarah Halimi, and I want you to say her name, Sarah Halimi. She was a retired physician and a teacher. In the past, he had taunted Halimi. She was the only Jewish resident in her building. On this night in 2017, Troy, who's high on marijuana, called her a dirty Jew, called her Satan, chanted Quranic verses, and repeatedly shouted, Allahu Akbar. The torture ended in murder when she shoved her mangled body off the balcony of her third-floor apartment. When he was questioned by investigators 3 months later, he talked about his motive. I felt persecuted, he said, when I saw her Torah and the chandelier, the menorah in her home. I felt oppressed. I saw her face transforming. And these facts held up. But the French Supreme Court decided that he could not be held responsible and could not even be tried. After all, because the drugs he was on, he was impaired and had psychosis. And Article 1221 of the French Criminal Code states, a person is not criminally liable who, when the act was committed, was suffering from a psychological or neuropsychological disorder, which destroyed his discernment or his ability to control his actions. But Article 132 of the French Code says that penalties are increased when the victim's religious or ethnic identity are a factor of crimes. But what we have been seeing throughout all of Europe is this incredible ability to not have any justice when a Jew is murdered or when a Jew is attacked. Whether in Norway, when there was an incident, another incident in Berlin, Jews are being attacked throughout this country, and there isn't injustice. And I want to share with you something else. Recently, a man who was drunk and on drugs entered someone's apartment. This was in Paris. He threw the dog out the window. The man had no recollection of the event, and we can argue that he had hypnosis and psychosis. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison. So perhaps you're asking me, why am I talking about this tonight once again? And a few months ago, I gave a sermon that anti-Semitism, the phrase, it's lost its punch because we say it so often and it loses its meaning. We should perhaps use the word Jew hatred. But this weekend, there are going to be countless protests throughout the world, outside French embassies or consulate offices, demanding justice for the murder of Sarah Halimi. This man who murdered her has used drugs before. This wasn't a one-time thing. But for some reason in French society, they are saying that it is okay to kill Jews. David Harris, who is the CEO of the American Jewish Committee, and I want to read you his article. This is the last paragraph he wrote regarding the murder of Sarah Halimi today. The words "never again," repeated so often because of the genocide against the Jewish people on European soil from 1933 to 1945, only have a meaning if we commiserate actions accompany those words. Otherwise, they are just hollow rhetoric at best, a cruel deception at worst. And as I think about this, and it pains me to say that David Harris is so right with the Jewish community. For those watching at home, how many people knew about the Sarah Halimi case? And last year during Hanukkah, another name that we will never forget, Joseph Newman. He was living in the Monsey Jewish community when someone came in with a machete and killed him. Well, what do you think the New York government just released? They won't try him because they believe he is mentally unstable to stand in trial. To me, this is a pattern. and the wake-up call that we need. I'm so proud that we're fighting for justice in our community, but we need to fight harder. I'm so tired of standing on this bema when it's a day of rest, and I got to remind our people that we are under attack. I don't have the perfect remedy, but the only answer that I can say for us tonight is do more than pay attention. Act. Write our congressman. Protest. Do something in honor of the memory of Sarah Halimi and Joseph Newman. These are two Jews who were murdered because they were Jewish, and their attackers will not see any justice. This is 2021. It's not 1933 to 1945. We've done so well as a people, internally and for our community. It's time for us to fight, stand up for our people, to prevent such crimes ever happening again. And as your rabbi, this will be my core. We will always remember Joseph Newman. We will always remember Sarah Halimi. This is our duty, and this, perhaps, is how we can find justice. Shabbat Shalom. And we could perhaps move into a segue. We are still on a path to receiving Torah at Sinai. And tonight, we are going to recall number 27. And for the sake of time, I don't have a lot of trivia, but I want to, okay? But I cut it. So this, remember, it's 27. This team won 27 World Series. Thank you. Okay, we're 1 for 1. Okay? This state is a 27th state that I guess was admitted to the Union. Many of us vacation down there. Florida, we're 2 for 2, okay? 2 for 2, okay? And as St. Vincent's, the orthopedic center down the street, there are 27 blank in the human what in the body? There are 27 bones. And what? Close. Hand. Okay. That's my trivia for tonight. We did very well. Okay. I got tired of the 27th president. We turned to page 570 and we rise together for the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sivrat ha'omer hayom shiva yom shehem shalosha shavuot v'shisha yamin la'omer. Today is 27 days, which is 3 weeks and 6 days of the Omer. Remain standing for Aleinu, page 586.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, lated gedula leotzer reshit, shelo asanu kegoe haratzot, velo samanu kamishpochot adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu noteh shamayim veyoser aretz, umoshav yakaro b'shamayim imal, ushchinatu zo, begave meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, emet malkeinu efesulato, kakatu v'torato, v'yadata yom v'shavata el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, bashamayim imal, ve'al haaretz mitachat einod, v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad, ushemo echad.
We turn to the page 596 at the top. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear, but if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction, he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as, in their higher moments, they themselves wish to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts, and always are they an abiding blessing. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzites of Isaac Abelson, Dorothy Berman, Sidney Morris Bernheim, Henry W. Blutman, Miriam Bromberg, Steve Brody, Lawrence Bunsey and Paula Bunsey, Thomas Bunsey Jr. and Thomas Bunsey Sr., Sophie Kaplan, Gary Marshall Cohen, Francis Copeland, Preston Edwards, Marvin Engel, Louis A. Estrak, Max Joseph Gerson, Solomon Goldberg, Alan M. Goldblatt, Betty Cohen Goldstein, Siebert Goodman, Joseph Hagedorn, Marie Rose Handler, Mayor Heineman, Prude Thomas Cowan Jr., Abe Klotzman, Pauline Kravitz, Isaac Ben Krentzman, Israel Landau, Benjamin Leader, David Dixon McPhillips, Lil Mendel, Dorothy Wolf Miller, Jacob Benisman, Mary Ofson, Jean Reitman, Benjamin A. Roth, Naomi Rustin Royal, Rosalind Blitz Scholwolf, Harold Schwab, Deborah Seitel, Sandra Seaton, Bessie Schiller, Sandy G. Siegel, Donald Silberman, Edward K. Simon, Harold Stern, Cecile A. Sundock, Ida Schultz Webster, Sylvia Shapiro Weinstein, Bernard Barrow Weitrack, and Irving H. Wolfson, and our heartfelt condolences in the recent passings of Kimberly Kraselsky, niece of David and Donna Kraselsky, Wayne Lesson, brother of Linda Cohn, and Lee Schnipper, wife of Jack. We rise together as a united congregation for Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yikadal v'ikadash shemei rabbah, bi'omad divrach hirotei v'amlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon, uv'chayet v'kol Beit Yisrael, Bagala uizman kariv v'yimru, Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei al-maya, Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit ba'ard hit romam hit naseh, v'ita dar v'ita lev v'ita lal, shmei dekudsha, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, damin ram v'yoma v'yimru, Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen.
In this house, it all comes together in this house. In this house, it all comes together in this house of God. In this house beats the heart of our family. In this house is the center of community. We study and we pray by meaning it each day. In this house, in this house, in this house, in this house. house is the spark of God's creation. In this house there is joy and celebration. By song or by word, our prayers will be heard. In this house, in this house, in this house. In this house, in this house. It all comes together in this house. In this house, in this house. It all comes together in this house of God. In this house we can shelter, we can clothe and feed. In this house there is always help for those in need. The stranger makes a friend, becomes inspired again. In this house, in this house, in this house. In this house, in this house. It all comes together in this house. In this house, in this house. It all comes together in this house of God.
Yasher Koach to an incredible Robin Berger. Thank you so much. We definitely can't
shalom.
wait to have you next. Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbos.